The Sunday cookout smelled like smoke and sweet corn. People talked and laughed all around me. I was standing near the grill when I quietly asked my brother Logan about the $8,000 he still owed me. I expected him to lower his voice or pull me aside, but he did the opposite. He lifted his glass, smiled wide, and raised his voice so everyone could hear. Then he said that family does not do debt and I should stop embarrassing myself by asking for money back. Laughter stopped. Heads turned. My cheeks burned so hot I felt dizzy. My dad looked away at the yard as if he wanted to disappear. My mom sighed and shook her head at me, not at him. I felt like I had been pushed into a corner in front of the whole world. As I stood there, Logan flipped the meat on his brand new grill, the same one he bought after borrowing my savings. I wanted to scream, but I could not move. Then I saw Madison. She froze with a serving spoon in her hand. Her eyes were wide. Her lips barely moved as she whispered something only I could hear. She said, almost to herself, $8,000 for what? The look on her face told me she had no idea. I sat on the porch steps later and thought back to the night when everything started. Months earlier, Logan had called me shaking and crying. He said a supplier was going to walk away if he did not pay right then. He said he would lose everything. I felt pulled in every direction. I did not have much saved, but I wanted to help my brother. I cashed out the tiny savings I had worked so hard for. I moved my own rent money around. I sent him the $8,000 that same night because he promised he would pay it back in 3 months and even add interest. Now those same bills were piling up at my door. My landlord wanted late fees. My car payment was overdue. I taught myself to stretch cups of noodles for days. And there he was at the cookout, showing off a new ring Madison was flashing and grilling on his new setup. When I left early, nobody tried to stop me. I felt like a stranger in my own family. Madison said she was happy the business was doing great. I knew that was not true. I knew exactly where that money had gone. I walked to my car feeling weak and angry, and worst of all, alone. That night I could not sleep. My thoughts kept spinning, so I finally called Logan. My voice shook, but I tried to stay calm. I told him I was struggling with rent and reminded him about the messages where he agreed to pay me back. He laughed. He said I was being dramatic. He said I offered the money as a gift and that if I really loved him I would not throw it in his face. I held the phone tight because I felt like I might crush it. Then he warned me not to drag our parents into the problem because I would look greedy. Greedy. Me. The person who gave him everything I had. Just as I tried to answer, I heard Madison in the background. She asked him what he was talking about. Logan hissed at her to stay out of it. Hearing that made something twist inside me. He hung up before I could say anything else. I sat on the edge of my bed staring at my phone. The messages where he called it alone sat right there. I felt trapped between fear and anger. I thought I had reached the lowest point. But soon I would learn that I was not even close. The next morning I opened an envelope from my landlord. My hands shook as I read the words final notice. I had 10 days to pay or leave. My rent debt had reached a point that could not be ignored. I stared at the printed screenshot of the transfer I made to Logan. I had trusted him. I had believed every word he said. I texted him again. I told him I was in real trouble. I told him I could lose my home. He replied with a thumbs up emoji. Then he sent another message that said, "You will figure it out. You always do." I sat on the floor surrounded by unpaid bills. I felt like I could not breathe. I wondered how family could watch someone drown and do nothing. Hours passed in silence until my phone buzzed again. It flashed a message from Madison. She did not send an emoji. She did not blame me. She did not brush it off. She wrote only 3 words. "Can we talk alone?" My heart dropped. Something in her tone told me she knew more than she wanted to believe. We met at a small coffee shop near my job. The air smelled like roasted beans and warm bread, but I could barely taste anything. Madison sat across from me, twisting a straw between her fingers. She looked nervous, almost scared. She asked me to explain everything from the start. I told her about the night Logan begged me for the money. I showed her the messages where he called it a loan and promised to repay it. Her face changed as she scrolled through my phone. Her skin went pale. She covered her mouth with her hand. Then she told me what he told her. He had said the $8,000 came from a business grant. He said I only helped with a few hundred once for groceries. He made her believe I barely contributed anything. She stared at the messages again with shaking hands. She asked in a soft voice, "What did he tell you he needed it for?" I told her he said it was for a supplier. She looked down at her drink. Her fingers trembled as she traced the rim of the cup. She whispered that some things had not been adding up for months. When she looked up at me again, I could see fear. And I could see the truth starting to break through. That afternoon Madison sent me a photo from her laptop. It was a picture of their joint account statement. My name stared back at me from the screen. The line with my transfer was there, 8,000 clear as day. Right under it, there were other payments. She circled them in red on the photo before sending it. A luxury truck. A resort weekend. A jewelry store. Not a single supplier in sight. My chest felt tight as I scrolled. The story about saving his business crumbled in seconds. That money had paid for his image, not his bills. While we texted, Madison confessed something else. She had been worried about missing funds for months, but every time she asked, Logan brushed her off or blamed bank errors. Late that night, she sent one last message. He lied to both of us. I am not sure what I am going to do yet, but I have an idea. Will you trust me for a little while? I stared at those words. Trust her. Trust the woman married to the man who had just laughed at my pain. But for the first time, I felt like I was not alone in this. I wrote back one word. Yes. We met again 2 days later, this time in my car at a quiet park. I kept the engine off and the windows cracked. Madison slid into the passenger seat and closed the door gently, like she was afraid the sound might carry. She told me Logan had kept control of everything since they got married. He handed her a small allowance and called it smart budgeting while he spent freely. She said she felt stupid for never checking where all the money went. I told her about the eviction notice. I told her how our parents had looked disappointed in me at the cookout, not in him. We sat in silence. Birds chirped outside while both of us tried to hold back tears. Then Madison said something that changed everything. If we confront him now, he will just lie and flip it on you. Let me handle him at home first. I need to see how far he is willing to go. Her eyes were steady. Before she got out of the car, she turned back. Just do one thing. Do not tell your parents yet. Please. I nodded. For the first time in a long time, I felt like someone was actually on my side. A week later my parents decided to host a game night. They said it was to bring the family together. To me it felt like a test. Logan arrived first, all smiles, carrying bags of pizza and snacks. He made sure everyone saw him pay for everything. He joked about business being busy and said he might hire staff soon. During a card game around the dining table, Madison spoke up. Her tone was casual, but I saw the sharpness in her eyes. She asked what everyone thought about lending money to family. The room changed. Logan froze for a second. My mom answered right away. She said family should help each other without keeping score or expecting anything back. My dad nodded and said that is what makes family special. I felt the whole table tilt against me. Logan leaned back in his chair and looked straight at me with a tiny smirk, like he knew I would not dare speak. I kept quiet. My throat felt tight. Madison did not push. She just watched him carefully and waited. Her eyes met mine across the table for half a second. I could read the message there. She had seen enough. That night I sat on my bed and opened an old box of memories. Inside were school photos, report cards, and small ribbons from contests I had won. Nothing big, nothing special. I thought about how Logan had always been the center of attention. When we were teenagers, he crashed my dad's car while joyriding with friends. Somehow, I ended up getting blamed for not keeping an eye on him. I worked all through high school, babysitting cousins and tutoring younger kids. I paid my way through community college while Logan tried different dreams that my parents quietly funded. They always called me strong. They said I would be fine on my own. It sounded like a compliment, but really it meant you do not need help. When I lent him that $8,000, it felt like I was finally part of the inner circle. I thought I was joining the family team. It hurt to realize I had only been used as a backup wallet. I wiped my eyes and opened my laptop. If my parents would not protect me, I had to protect myself. I typed in small claims court in my state and started to read. I reached out to Malik, a friend from church who worked at a small law office. We met in a quiet room after service. I spread my screenshots on the table while he adjusted his glasses and studied them one by one. He pointed to the texts where Logan called it a loan. Then to the ones where he promised to pay me back with interest. Then to the thank you message where he said I had saved his business. Malik leaned back and said I had a solid case. He explained that I could file in small claims without a lawyer. The judge would look at the messages and the bank records. Then he warned me. You will probably win the money, he said, but it will blow up the family. On the bus ride home, I argued with myself in my head. Does taking my own brother to court make me a bad person? Or does letting him get away with this make me a target for more pain? As I walked up the steps to my apartment, my phone buzzed. Madison had sent a message. You are not crazy. I found something. Call me when you are alone. My heart picked up speed. Whatever she had found, I knew it was not small. I called Madison from my bedroom with the door locked. She did not waste time. She said she had finally pushed Logan into doing a written budget after their last big fight about money. Then she sent me photos of a notebook. On each page, I could see his handwriting. He had promised not to make big purchases without telling her. He had written down plans to pay off debts and to save for the future. Madison circled certain lines and texted me again. These dates match the truck and resort charges. He promised one thing and did another. Her voice shook over the phone. She said this was not just about me. It was about a pattern, a habit of lying and spending while pretending to be responsible. She admitted she had thought about leaving before. But this, she said, felt like a line he had crossed with no way back. Then she asked the question that had been hanging in the air since the cookout. If this comes out, would you really be willing to face him in front of everyone? I sat there with the phone pressed to my ear. My heart pounded, but my answer felt clear. I said, yes. I am tired of hiding. 2 days later, Madison texted me her plan. She told Logan she wanted to meet with a financial advisor so they could get serious about their future. He agreed, proud to show off how well he thought he was doing. What he did not know was that she had listed me as a family investor. My name was on the appointment. When I walked into the advisor's office, Logan was already seated on the couch. His eyes widened when he saw me. His smile faded like someone had flipped a switch. The advisor, a calm man with gray hair, greeted us and opened a folder. He pointed to a printed bank statement. Then he spoke in a gentle voice. There is a large transfer from your sister's account about 8 months ago, he said. I would like to understand how that fits into your plan and how it is being repaid. Logan cleared his throat and forced a grin. He said it was not a loan, just a generous gift I had insisted on giving him. Then the advisor turned to me. "Is that accurate?" he asked. I felt my hands tremble, but my voice came out steady. "No," I said. "It was a loan. And I can prove it." I slid my phone across the desk, screen glowing with a message thread. Logan leaned forward, but the advisor got there first. He read the lines where Logan called it a loan. He read the promised dates. He read the thank you message. The advisor's eyebrows rose a little. He glanced at Logan. "From a financial point of view," he said, "this is clearly a debt. Whether you talked about it differently at home does not change what is written here." Logan's jaw tightened. He tried to laugh it off. He said we had been joking in the messages. He claimed I was twisting his words because I was under stress. Madison sat very still with her hands folded in her lap. Her eyes shone, but she stayed silent. She watched him choose lies over honesty even when the truth stared him in the face. The advisor spoke again, firmer this time. "If this debt is not acknowledged and repaid, it will continue to affect your household budget and your relationship. You cannot just wish it away." Logan pushed back his chair so hard it scraped the floor. He muttered that this was a waste of time and stormed out. Madison remained in her seat. She looked at me with a tired, clear gaze. "He will never fix this on his own," she said. "We need to think bigger. My parents had a big anniversary coming up. 40 years of marriage." Logan took charge of planning the party. He bragged in the family group chat about booking a banquet hall and ordering custom decorations. Madison pulled me aside one evening and told me her idea. She wanted the truth to come out that night, in front of the people Logan worked the hardest to impress. Our parents. Our relatives. His friends. I hesitated. Real life is not like a movie. There is no pause button when things go wrong. I still had the eviction notice stuck to my fridge with a magnet. Madison saw the fear on my face. The next day she came over with a plain envelope. Inside was part of her own savings. Enough to buy me more time with my landlord. "I do not want you out on the street while this plays out," she said. Later that night she sent me an audio clip she had recorded. In it, Logan laughed with a friend about how I would never see the money again. He said the same line. "Family does not do debt." Hearing his voice say it made me feel sick. But it also cleared the last bit of fog in my mind. As the party drew closer, my nerves stretched tight. I woke up early to messages from my landlord asking for a firm answer. Could I pay soon, or did he need to start looking for a new tenant? I started packing a few boxes, just in case. Folding my clothes into cardboard felt like folding up a piece of my life. I talked to the viewer in my head, telling myself the truth I was afraid to say out loud. Part of me wanted to run, change my number, move to another city and cut everyone off. But another part remembered standing by the grill while people laughed as Logan shamed me. That memory burned hotter than fear. Madison came by one afternoon with her laptop. She showed me the video she had edited. It opened with the bank transfer, then the text messages, then the audio of his voice bragging about never paying me back. "You do not have to attack him," she said softly. "He already did this. We are just letting people see it." I watched the screen, my stomach twisting. If we did this, there would be no going back. I thought of my empty savings account and my packed boxes. Then I nodded. The night of the party arrived. The banquet hall glowed with warm lights and gold balloons. Old photos of my parents lined the tables. People hugged and laughed and told stories about how my parents had helped them over the years. Logan moved around the room like he owned it. He wore a sharp suit and kept saying how proud he was to honor our parents. He gave them a folder with travel tickets for a vacation, and everyone clapped and cheered. During dessert, he tapped the microphone. The room grew quiet. He began a speech about what family means. He talked about loyalty and sacrifice. He said we always stand together, no matter what. People nodded. Some wiped away tears. Near the back of the room, Madison slipped over to the table where the projector laptop sat. She met my eyes for a moment and gave a tiny nod. Logan ended his speech with the words, "That is what real loyalty looks like." On cue, the lights dimmed. The music faded. The projector screen behind him flickered to life as Madison clicked on a file. People turned toward the screen. They were still smiling. They had no idea what they were about to see. First, a large screenshot filled the screen. It showed my name, my account, and the 8,000 transfer to Logan. The room fell silent. Only the soft hum of the projector could be heard. Before anyone could process it, the audio began. Logan's own voice echoed around the hall. He laughed as he told someone that I would never see the money again because family does not do debt. He joked that I was soft for still struggling with rent. Chairs creaked as people shifted. My parents stared at the screen. Some guests covered their mouths. The words hung in the air like smoke. Logan spun around, eyes wide. He rushed to the projector, fumbling with the cables, trying to stop the video. But Madison had already paused it on a frame that clearly showed the bank record. Her hands shook as she stepped forward. In a trembling voice, she looked across the room at me. "How much did you lend him exactly?" she asked. Every eye turned in my direction. I felt my heart pounding in my ears as I rose from my seat. This was the moment everything would change. My legs felt heavy as I walked toward the center of the room. My hands shook, but when I spoke, my voice surprised me. It was clear. 8,000, I said. It was all my savings. I gave it to Logan when he said his business was about to fail. He promised to pay it back in 3 months. I told them about the rent, the bills, the eviction notice. I said I had stayed quiet because I did not want to divide the family. But staying silent had only protected the person doing the harm. A long silence followed my words. You could almost hear every heart beating. My dad stood up slowly. His face looked older than I remembered. He turned to Logan. "Is what she said true?" he asked. Logan opened his mouth, then closed it. Sweat glistened on his forehead. Around us, cousins and old friends watched with wide eyes. The gold balloons and cheerful banners suddenly felt like decorations for a play that had taken a very dark turn. My mom clutched her napkin so tightly it tore. She looked like she wanted to speak, but no sound came out. Everything rested on what Logan would say next. Logan exploded. He shouted that I had ruined the party. He accused me of being jealous of his success. He claimed again that the money was a gift, and that I was twisting the story because my own life had not gone the way I wanted. My mom suddenly spoke, her voice high and shaky. She said I always made things bigger than they were. She begged us to sit down and stop causing a scene. The room felt smaller, like the walls were moving in. For a moment I wondered if I had made a mistake. Then Madison stepped forward. She was holding a folder to her chest. Her voice shook, but she kept speaking. "I am sorry," she said to my parents, "but you deserve to see everything." She laid the folder on the table in front of them and opened it. Inside were printed bank statements, notebook pages, and screenshots. She invited anyone who wanted to look. Relatives came closer, murmuring. Someone picked up a page and began to read out loud. It was a message where Logan clearly called the money a loan and thanked me for saving his business. The lies in Logan's words started to crumble in front of everyone's eyes. More cousins and relatives gathered around the table. Pages were passed from hand to hand. People read the messages where Logan set a date to pay me back. Someone quietly pointed out the resort and truck charges right under my transfer. Then a cousin spoke up from the back. He said that Logan had also borrowed from him once and never repaid a cent. Another family member nodded and added her own story. A pattern started to form, right there in the middle of the celebration. A trail of charm, promises, and unpaid debts. My dad sank into his chair, shoulders hunched. My mom stopped defending Logan and just stared at the papers in front of her. I took a deep breath and told everyone that I had already started the small claims process. I said I was not doing it because I wanted to punish him. I was doing it because I needed to protect myself. Then I added one more thing. If Logan pays what he owes and admits the harm he has done, I am willing to settle, I said. But I am done pretending this is nothing. The room was quiet again. The truth sat between us like another guest at the table. Logan stormed out of the hall, dragging my mom by the arm. She looked back at me with a confused, broken expression. My dad stayed behind, talking quietly with a few relatives. The party slowly faded into small worried groups and hushed voices. The next morning, a process server went to Logan's house. The neighbor across the street watered his lawn as the papers were handed over. Logan could not pretend he had not seen them. Soon after, my phone rang. His name flashed on the screen. He shouted that I had humiliated him. He said his business partners were asking questions. He said I had ruined his reputation and our parents' big night. I reminded him calmly that he had humiliated me first at the cookout, and that he had been fine with that. A few days passed. Then he called again. This time his voice was lower, almost flat. "Is there any way we can handle this privately?" he asked. I listened to the fear hidden under his words. Court records are public. A judgment would follow him. It was the first time I felt the power shifting away from him and back toward me. I took a breath and laid out my terms on the phone. My voice did not shake this time. "You need to pay back the full amount," I said. "Every dollar. You also need to cover the court fees." I told him he would have to sign a written repayment agreement and stick to it. No more empty promises. No more delays. Then I said the part that mattered most to my heart. "You will apologize," I said, "in front of our parents and Madison. Not just for the money, but for lying and for shaming me." He cursed under his breath and said I was acting brand new, like I had forgotten what family means. I answered softly that I remembered very well what family had felt like when I was standing alone with a final notice in my hand. Later that night, Madison texted me. She said his account had already been flagged by the court. He was afraid of losing credit and business deals. She wrote, "This might be the only time he is actually listening. Do not let him talk you down." For once, I had the leverage. I was not going to throw it away. Before the planned family meeting, Madison asked to see me. We met at a small park and walked slowly along the path. The air was cool, and the trees whispered above us. She told me she had made her own decision. If Logan refused my terms, she would separate from him and seek her own legal protection. She was tired of being pulled into lies she never agreed to. Hearing that made my chest ache. She loved him, but she loved the truth more. When we finally gathered at my parents' house, Madison did something bold. She sat beside me on the couch, not beside Logan. That simple move said more than any speech. Logan walked in and stopped when he saw where she was sitting. He looked from her to me and back again. For the first time, I saw real fear in his eyes. My dad sat in his old armchair. My mom perched on the edge of the sofa, wringing her hands. Logan sighed and said he was ready to hear my conditions in full. He spoke like someone who knew the ground under his feet had started to crack. This time, I was not the one on trial. We sat in a tight circle in the living room. The air felt heavy. Logan held a folded paper in his hand. He began by reading from it. In the statement, he admitted that he had taken advantage of my trust. He confessed that the $8,000 was a loan, not a gift. He said he lied to Madison and used the words "family does not do debt" as an excuse to dodge responsibility. His voice shook a little, but he kept reading. When he finished, he slid a cashier check across the coffee table toward me. It covered a large part of the loan. Under it was a written repayment schedule for the rest, signed by him. My parents looked ashamed and relieved at the same time. My dad thanked me for telling the truth instead of just disappearing from their lives. My mom whispered that she was sorry for not believing me sooner. I told them I accepted the apology, but I also needed new rules. I said I would never lend money to family again. Not to Logan. Not to anyone. My savings would only rescue me from now on. As we stood to leave, I turned to Logan. There is one more thing you should know, I said. Months later, life felt different. Logan kept to the repayment schedule. Each time a payment landed in my account, I used it with care. I paid off the back rent and the late fees. I built a small emergency fund so I would never be that close to losing my home again. I also enrolled in an online course in financial planning. The idea of understanding money better, for myself and maybe for others, made me feel strong instead of scared. Madison kept her own boundary. She now had full access to their accounts and made her own choices about her future. Their marriage was not perfect, but it was no longer built on secrets. At a smaller family gathering later that year, someone joked about money and debts. Logan tried to smile and said, "Family still does not do debt, right?" Maybe he thought a joke would make things normal again. I looked at him calmly. Then I answered, "You are right. Family does not do debt anymore. At least not with me." People went quiet for a moment, then the conversation moved on. In that silence, I felt something settle inside me. I had not destroyed my family to get revenge. I had drawn a hard line, told the truth, and protected my future, even if that meant loving some relatives from a careful distance.